Yeah. Hey there, Chicago White Sox fans. This is Brett Ballantini hosting Chicago Baseball Podcast. Yes, we used to have another name. We are transitioning to our new name, Sox Populi, but right now, I don't know, it might even be changed by the time you're listening to this or seeing our post. But as of right now, you see we are generic, no logo, Chicago Baseball Podcast. So welcome to the Chicago Baseball Podcast. We are happy to bring you information about Chicago baseball. Not the Cubs, although I guess we might get a little bit of Cubs stuff today because the White Sox played the Cubs today. But I have two of the same family, two on the ground, feet on the ground. It's been 2-3 years since we had Sean Williams, who is now dearly departed to South Dakota. So he is far away from Camelback Ranch. Can't really cover it for us very conveniently. Can't take any of those photos that you loved from him a few years back. But we have something even better. It is a mother-son tandem, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach and her son Sage, who have been at World Baseball Classic a couple days ago and the last two White Sox games at Camelback Ranch. Should have been 3, but Mother Nature plays an ugly. It rains like one game out every spring training, and they happen to be there for a rain out. So welcome, Melissa and Sage. Thanks for, first of all, being there and joining me on this podcast.
Yeah, it's been a blast. It's like we started out, by our plane being delayed. So we actually were planning on going to the first game on Tuesday when we got here. So we missed that. And then, the rain. And so we were like, this is not a good start. A little nervous, but we've rebounded. We've rebounded and we brought it home strong. So
now, it is the first spring training for Sage, but not for you, Melissa. You have been to spring training because I believe you've got like a story about maybe Michael Jordan's first hit, or what's going on with that?
This is my 3rd spring training. Okay. So my very first spring training, I was a 22-year-old college student who went with my girlfriends to Sarasota and I talked them into going to a game because we were there. And the very first game we went to, I got this cool White Sox St. Patrick's Day jersey. I had like my whole $50 I had to spend on spring break. My friends are buying, cool clothes and sunglasses, and I'm buying a White Sox jersey. And it was the game that Michael Jordan actually got his first hit. So I have a picture, I don't have a picture of the hit, but I have like a picture taken with one of those old fashioned cameras, that we used to have. You can see like this little teeny tiny blurry Michael Jordan. So that was my first one. And then I went in 2003. So that was, almost 20 years ago. Went with a girlfriend and had a great time. And then drug this one 20 years later.
20 years later. Wow. Hey, Generation X, represent. I love it. Well, Sage, I have more in common with you in terms of my spring training experience. The one time I went to spring break in Florida, senior year of high school, it just rained the whole time. I didn't see anything. I don't think my objective was to go to see baseball games, but had I wanted to, it was like ankle deep rain. So that wasn't going to happen. So I can sympathize with the fact that you guys were late to the first game, then rained out of the second one. And I hope you didn't lose hope, Sage. It was like, man, I'm not going to see any games. I'm supposed to see 5, and I'm going to end up seeing 0, taking this whole ridiculous trip to Arizona to see nothing. So I'm glad you did get to see some baseball. Thank goodness. Jeez. Okay. So we've got the game write-ups, 2 great pieces from Melissa, feet on the ground, talking. I mean, the one today against the Cubs tie game was essentially our recap, but of course yesterday she augmented our coverage with some news and notes, observations. So we won't focus too much, I guess, on the gameplay, but I guess first of all, from either one of you, both of you, what's just the feeling being there? Camelback, for you, Melissa, it's been things have definitely changed since you've been, because that's a number of years, and they seem to be tinkering with it every year. And Sage,
I meant to look it up, but I think didn't they used to be with the Diamondbacks? And so is that the same facility or different facility?
No, they were in, I think they were in Tucson, which is a lot less convenient. So this is way more central.
I was like, I'm like, this doesn't seem to be the same
You
place.
thought you should recognize it. Wow, your memory's gotten really bad. No. Tucson is considerably different, and yeah, way more out of the way. So I think that was part of it too. Reinsdorf, sort of pulls all the strings there. So I think he said, you know what, this is where I want it. This is how we're going to do it. And Arizona said, oh, sure, Jerry. And how about we team you with the Dodgers instead of the Diamondbacks? So yeah, it's way more convenient. I mean, obviously getting to the game in Goodyear yesterday, just much easier than if you're in Tucson. That's a hoof. So
yeah.
So yeah, just what was the feeling like? Sage been to plenty of games, even at the the big ballpark. In Chicago, obviously it's a lot more intimate. You can get up close to the players in both spots, but in spring training, it's way more informal.
Yeah. It's just kind of surreal because like you just see a ton of stuff that you can't able to see in normal MLB parks. Like when we went to the WBC game, like you couldn't really get up close at all. Like people were trying to, but you just couldn't.
Yeah.
But here, like, a lot of people came up. Unfortunately, everyone who we kind of wanted to see come up, left when we were the next person that they're going to sign. Yeah. So, but like just still like everyone was like Jake Berger signed for pretty much anybody he could. He got any chance, and it like all you saw him, he was assigned every chance he got, and real props to him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we did sort of characterize him as man of the people, and that is the way he seems to carry himself. Of course he's a young guy, so he should be, somewhat humble and relatable to fans. But listen, he's played in the majors. He doesn't have to be, and there are definitely minor league players, much less young major league players, who might turn, not pointing out anybody, but I mean, they might turn the other way. They certainly won't necessarily have the stamina to relate to fans and sign, because I suppose that can be taxing. I mean, you and I think it'd just be fun to do, and it probably is somewhat fun to do, but I'm sure after a while it's like, all right, I'm hungry, I'm dirty, I want to get out of here.
And like, I won't call this player out, but like another young player who's kind of been up and down the last few years, he signed a couple and he's like, oh, well, I'll come back. I'm going to do BP and I'll catch you guys when I come back. And then when he came back, he got on the golf cart and he zoomed right by. So, so I do. I like, like the guys that really did spend time and like, not only like we're signing, but with like chit chat and things. Like, obviously you don't get that when you go to the park. If you're lucky if you can quick get in an autograph, and they're trying to get through as many as possible. But here it's like time is a lot less, I don't know, significant, I guess it seems like, and especially because I will give like huge props to Camelback Ranch, because they open the facility up at like 9 a.m. So like starting at 9 a.m. you can get in there and you can start wandering around. I mean, I don't care where obviously there's fenced off areas, but you can wander to any of the fields, whether they're doing, the defensive stuff or the batting practice, the pitchers are practicing, they have it all set up super fan friendly. And that, like at the previous 2 spring trainings I've been to, like I didn't really ever have that experience. Like they really set this up in a cool way that makes it super fun for fans.
Yeah, sometimes they even have the backfields games going on while there's a Camelback Ranch. It might not be a White Sox game, but I mean, there could be a Dodgers game going on. Like yesterday, I assume Dodgers were playing, but then Giolito was pitching in the backfields. So yeah, it is neat to sort of be able to roam the complex. Now, Melissa, something that came out in the 2 pieces you've written were some observations. I believe yesterday it was of the stretching routine. Today was the pop-up drill. Now, of course, it's spring training, so this stuff is supposed to be going on. This is not the only time. You can call guys out for drills anytime. I'm not sure how much it happens at the major league level, and you don't want to fatigue guys, and have them do like an hour of fly ball drills, even if they really need it, because these guys do have to play, and as we know, they tend to be a little fragile too. But having covered spring training as well and been at the Camelback complex, I mean, we're getting on now. We're 2 weeks from the season. Not to say things have wrapped up, not to say that they're in a major league game mode yet, but some of that stuff could be already getting dismissed or downplayed, be it the stretching, although that's right up at game time. And even the drills. I mean, you could see that maybe being de-emphasized. I don't know what it was like, say, under La Russa the last couple of years. Maybe you wouldn't have seen that, maybe that type of drilling, at least at this stage in spring training. you can't really compare it to regular season, but how did it leap out to you guys in terms of, maybe a different attitude with the team, or just a willingness to put these guys through some paces for a team that probably does need some drilling?
I feel like I've observed that in the past, whether it's like pregame or, a little bit in spring training and stuff, but like everybody seemed really like dialed in. Like there were like, even the guys that were like in the outfield, they were like laser focused on what was going on in the infield, and so again, yeah, I mean, I can't really say what it was like last year with Tony or whatever, but to me, it just seemed like everybody was super dialed into and I mean, Pedro was right there. I mean, he was right there. He was calling stuff out. He was super engaged. And like, as well as like, the other coaches, who's the infield guy? My name is going away. The other infield coach guy.
Okay.
But I couldn't remember. Anyway. And so to me, it just really seemed like, and other people that I was talking to along the fence and stuff as we were watching, we were all kind of making that observation. So I don't know if it was just us like wishful thinking, like it's going to be so much different because they're super dialed in, but everybody kind of seemed to be seeing the same thing.
Yeah. You remember when Robin Ventura took over, the thing that seemed so cool about what he was doing. I don't know if you recall this. He was doing they did the shadow ball, where they would take infield without a baseball and they would mime the actions. Now, I don't know how much that is just novelty. I have to assume there is something to it. It's something that's gone. I mean, for a century of baseball, it's happened. But then that, at some point that went away. And it would be interesting to know at some point. I know fatigue will just kick in at some point, and Pedro's not going to be up at 6 a.m. drilling guys and staying up till midnight drilling guys all season long, if he's even doing it now. It'll be interesting to see, especially if they need it, especially if there's cause for it, say no pop-up communication, whether they trot that drill back out, even pregame, at the major league level, at Yankee Stadium or in Oakland or something, when they need it. It'll be interesting to see if this, something that might stop at spring training, stop a month into the season, stop after the season, but that's for the future to determine. But it's encouraging to hear that he's out there very active in the drills. That's who he's been up until getting this manager's job. So I mean, why wouldn't he still sort of be the guy who's sort of in the fray, not just delegating to all his other coaches, but saying, hey, listen, I want to see it with my own eyes. I mean, he does have to make decisions of who to play, how to play, who to yell at, who to pat on the butt, so sure. So overall, the aside from the the newness of going to Camelback Ranch for the first time for both of you, and just I guess the novelty of spring training, what was the feeling, be it with other fans? I mean, you're inclined to want to be optimistic and encouraged and excited to be there, and of course most everybody's made a really long trip to get there. Some people have their flights delayed and all that. So I mean, of course you just want to see the best, you want to be excited, you want to get a little sun on your face because you've been in the snow for 30 months or whatever. So, I mean, of course there's that, but I mean, beyond that is there a little different, maybe sense right now around this team?
I feel like there kind of is. I feel like just being there is kind of totally like different to the players rather than like a major league stadium in a way. I don't really know how, but it just got that feeling in a way. Definitely just going there is, I gotta say, Camel Ranch is definitely better than Goodyear by like like you walk up to like you're driving in the Goodyear and you're in this like driving through this field parking lot and there's like rocks everywhere. Well, in Camel Ranch, there's like actual like good like sighting and everything. The seats were way bigger and it was like, oh wow, look at this. And then you go into Goodyear and you're like, oh well, okay, they drive.
And it's kind of like their state. It's like their big league stadium. You go to their big league stadium and you're like, ugh. I mean, I've been to 21 and it's like, I don't know if it's number 21, but it's 21, 20, 19, somewhere around there. So their minor league facilities are kind of similar.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't hurt that the White Sox got to sort of like catch the coattails of the Dodgers. Dodgers probably ain't going to do anything second class. So,
True.
that probably helps that they're associated. They get to look good by association. Well, let's take our quick break here. Hey, wait a minute. Hold on. Forget a break. We don't need to take any break. We got no commercials to run. We're the Chicago Baseball Podcast. Oh, forget about a break. We're not letting up. You got to keep listening. You don't get to tune out a commercial for even 1 minute because we got no commercial. We will have commercials at some point as this transition happens. The Fans First Sports Network, I'll learn to get that out faster, we'll be doing all the same stuff. I mean, again, there should be a seamless listening experience for you already. We're going to try to reach out and get onto a few more networks beyond just Spotify and Apple and the Megaphone. You may be watching or listening to us now. I mean, there are big things to come with the podcast, but one thing that isn't coming yet is you having to sit through a Vox commercial break. Wow. Look how trained I am through 139 of these mothership podcasts that I just automatically went into a commercial break we don't have to take. So now that I've blathered on for about a minute, which we can just call a commercial, we'll call that a commercial. Let's just get
podcast commercial.
Yeah. So welcome back, even though you didn't leave, to the Chicago Baseball Podcast. I am Brett Ballantini with podcast veteran at this point, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach, and first timer, her son, a partner in crime, baseball ballpark traveling companion, partner in crime, Sage, both giving us good input on what the experience has been this year with the White Sox, and of course the Camelback Ranch 2023 experience, because we haven't got that from anybody else associated with the site, and probably only been able to trickle in a little bit of stuff through tweets and Chuck Garfine's thoughts and whatever else. So it's pretty cool to get this first person account coming from Melissa, and both Melissa and Sage on this podcast. Before I guess we get to World Baseball Classic, because you got a little bit of a taste of that as well. That was your first actual baseball on this trip. Other things that we need to sort of cover or talk about, or novelties or tips for anybody who might still even be going to Camelback Ranch. We got a couple weeks left in spring training. There still are games to be played. Other things we need to know.
My tip would definitely be to go when the facility opens. Mm-hmm. So go and take advantage of being able to go on all those fields and interact with the players in different ways, because I don't know. We saw, like, though I forgot to put this in the story even, but we're standing there kind of where they have it, the area off where you wait for the players when they're done off the field. And Sage is like, "Oh my gosh, here comes Liam." And Liam was in one of the golf carts, and he had to be
zooms by 50 miles an hour while everyone else is driving like 20.
Yeah, like everyone else, is like 5 miles an hour or whatever.
Like speed limit. And Liam's just like, off. Like, oh, well, he has somewhere to be.
Yeah. Like, Liam. I mean, I get that, like that, like you never know what you're going to see. And so, I think that there were like quite a few fans who like came more at the last minute, like we saw kind of filing into the stadium at the last minute. And like, if you are going to go there and you're going to go to spring training, go and
take it in.
Go and do the backfields. And like you said, I mean, the Dodgers, if you have interest in baseball in general, you can do the same for the Dodgers too, because
there was still a ton of people there watching the Dodgers while they were practicing. Well,
So.
Yeah, it's not like the tickets are cheap. So, I mean, you might as well try to get your full experience. I don't think many people are going down there to try to hit, although I'm sure it does happen. Hey, they want to try and catch a night game and they want to catch a day game. So they might be running between. But listen, if you're a White Sox fan, you're going to be at Camelback Ranch. If you're a White Sox fan, you probably should go, when it opens, because as you point out, Melissa, they do open it up early enough for you to see, to see the drills, to see the guys just filing through, to see probably some BP, to see guys doing their side work or sliding drills. And that stuff is all, it's pretty novel. I mean, you might be lucky to see a little bit of baseball, a little bit of batting practice at any major league stadium you go to, including at Sox Park. But that's about as close as you're going to get. What? You're going to see them playing catch, warming up before the game to maybe a little long toss. I mean, that's cool, but I mean, it's not nearly the behind the curtain experience that you get to see at the spring training facility. And
I think that's a great way to say it, because I think when you go to games during the season and you have the major leaguers and you just think they're so good at everything, and then to see them having to like drill it down to these like nitpicky things and work on them, you're like, oh, like they still have work to do. Like they just don't waltz in and like, which maybe was part of the problem in the last couple of, maybe there was a little waltzing in of like, probably need
Yeah.
to do much here.
Yeah.
But that is definitely not the case this year. So, and parking is free. There's my other tip.
Oh,
Both
yeah, that's
stadiums we
right.
went to was a nice perk. I was, expecting to pay my $20, but it was free. So
Yeah, I remember covering, because I think at the time, at least, Cleveland was. Do they still share with Cincinnati? I thought that they were maybe
yes,
sharing that park. Okay,
yes.
I remember for media, you could go and get a Diet Coke out of the mini fridge in the back of the press box. So the little perks matter. And yes, you're right. I mean, it is things you overlook. And actually, that was news to me that they don't charge you to park, because that was never my experience going in as a fan.
Right.
So I guess I wasn't even certain of that. So yeah, the access where you can almost literally just sort of walk up. Of course, you're gonna pay a decent ticket, but then why not explore the entire studio space? And that might even be because you have a unique situation with the White Sox, and not every team has the dual training site. You could technically double your fun. I mean, who's a Dodger fan? But I mean, in case you just love baseball enough, go check them out. There's always something happening. You have no real excuse to be bored at Camelback Ranch. There's way too much stuff going on. There's like 300 baseball players that are doing something somewhere. Like even the little tiny diamond where I think they just basically do like bunting drills. They got the little tiny diamond next to the batting cages, and it's a crazy complex. It is, I mean, you could definitely get lost there. And 2 days, I assume 2 days just isn't enough. I mean, you really want like a week or something. Come on.
I made that comment to Sage when we were driving back. I'm like, okay, next time we come, we're gonna stay for like a week, because like I feel that we got a lot done, but like we still could have even like enjoyed it and immersed ourselves in it even more. So we'll be back.
All right. Oh, see, there you go. Camelback Ranch. Hey, listen, not saying you got to take care of the Sage-Bollenbach here, but come on. Hey, they're promising they're coming back maybe as soon as 2024. Okay. No commercial break here to sag here, but okay, let's pretend I'll just space out a little bit. Okay, we're back from another break, and we're going to talk about the World Baseball Classic. It's something that seems like, I mean, we talked about it the very last podcast, back when it was called something else, number 138. We talked at some length about the World Baseball Classic and how it does seem to be catching people's interest in a way that's very different. And now, unfortunately, we've seen it take a turn where the debate is, when should it be played? Should it be played? Guys are getting hurt. That's terrible. We hate it. And those are usually, grandpa takes, but there are people who do feel that way as well. Clearly the excitement for it and the players' excitement for it is something very different. And I can't imagine there's anybody playing for their country who is sort of yawning through it saying, I could be doing this, or I could be back at Camelback Ranch playing a game against the Cubs. I don't think there's any comparison. The difference here is, whereas maybe before it meant more to the players than fans, it does seem like fans have really caught up and gotten into it. You two did get to see one of the games live. So tell me about that experience, because it certainly was different than what you've seen at Camelback Ranch and at Goodyear in these last 2 days, in many ways, including volume of people, and I'm sure excitement attached to it.
It's just seeing fans from like everywhere, not even just the States, just like in everywhere in general. Like we saw a lot of like Colombia fans, but we even saw like some Mexico fans, some like Puerto Rico fans, just like all just in there enjoying the game, just like being there. I thought that was just really cool because you never get to see that happen. And then just I don't even know what to say about it. It was just so surreal. It was definitely one of my favorite games I've been to ever.
Yeah, it seems like it would be like almost a baseball Olympics. It really is the closest we have to an Olympics, right? So you're getting this interaction of fan, not just the teams, of course, who would never necessarily run into each other, but you got fans sitting next to each other, like, the Mexican fans, are carrying over from the game they saw earlier or whatever, or they just want to, they're here, they want to see games. I mean, that is a unique experience you're not going to get. As much as there's a mix of fans at Sox Park or any other park, you're not going to get that in the way you guys got it. So you did really see sort of a baseball Olympics, and that's pretty neat.
So for me, I feel a lot of time, like you go to Sox games and of course, you've got your diehards and who are into kind of like every pitch, but then there's a lot of, he's tapping me on the shoulder. But then there's also a significant amount of more of like the casual fan, right? Who's just, go in, it's Sunday and it's cheap and you can bring your family and it's a day out or whatever. Or, a lot of people use it as a social gathering too, which great, all good stuff. I'm not saying it's bad, but the WBC, those fans were there to watch baseball. Like they were in every pitch. Like it didn't seem that there were a lot of people like leaving in between innings to go get sessions or anything. I mean, people were like dialed in. And I think as fans, you were feeding off of the players who were treating it like a playoff atmosphere. Every ball, every play, their Mookie Betts is out there like Superman, like flying, attacking the ball, and Mike Trout, literally Captain America, taking that team on his back and just saying, I am Captain America. And so it was, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. And I mean, I've been to Field of Dreams, playoff games, you name it. And while those are all awesome too, like this has its own unique feel to it. And I would encourage like any fan who ever gets the opportunity to do it. So, and I think I read it's coming back in 2026. If you're, out here seeing spring training, or you're in Florida seeing spring training, or you're looking to do something fun as a trip, absolutely make it a WBC experience because it was cool.
See, even as you two are talking, I've not had this experience. And of course, I've not had any sort of Olympic experience. I've just had the regular old run of the mill. Okay. World Series games or whatever. Okay. Big deal. But listen, when you hear these guys talk, like I think Francisco Lindor is one who came out, I think coming out in the aftermath of the injury to his team's closer. And saying, this is, you can say what you want about the playoffs and all that. And I'm sure I'm going to mischaracterize what he said, but essentially I think what he's trying to communicate was this is super important to us. This is maybe the most important thing to us. And obviously none of us are players in these games, but if you haven't had the experience that even you two have had, I can't understand that. Now I'm not gonna think I'm smarter than Francisco Lindor and say, oh, well, that he's silly. What is he talking about? That's so dumb. Of course, I'm not going to say that. But I also can't connect with that to say like, okay, wait, this isn't the World Series. It's hard for me to compute. You having been there, say, oh yeah, I mean, listen, you're getting goosebumps talking about it clearly, and that's not even like the championship game. You're seeing games to qualify the U.S. Or another team, in further on in the tournament. So I mean, it's a lower level game even, and yet there's something that's caught you up about it that I guess would be at least somewhat akin to a playoff atmosphere, even though this isn't like your team per se or exactly your team. It's just a couple players from our team on the team you're watching and rooting for. But I think unless you're there, it would be hard, because I mean, just in talking to you, I'm not getting goosebumps. I'm understanding what you're saying, but I don't have that experience to say, oh yeah, I remember when that happened, and wow, it blew me away, and I was so proud when my team won or whatever. So your recommendation, I don't think is light in any way. And although if you haven't been there, you might not understand. And I would hope most people would be curious enough to say, hey, maybe I should check this out. I mean, if you have the means to do it, because it does sound like something that is completely unique. And if you're not going to get to an Olympics, which is, I'm sure, its own, like its own crazy animal. I mean, this is just baseball Olympics. I mean, that's the best Olympics, right? I mean, come on, no offense to, rhythmic gymnastics or water polo or whatever, but come on, baseball Olympics is the best Olympics, and you got to play a part of that. Specific moments from the game you saw, or was there anything that really jumped out there aside from just the electricity maybe from pitch one?
I mean, it was like anytime like there was a walk or a base hit, I mean, everybody stood up, and like we had amazing seats. We were in left center field, and we had the front row, and like we were sitting next to some Rockies fans and some Dodgers fans, and like everybody would stand up and like start pounding on the outfield wall. I mean, so it was like anytime there was action, it was just USA. Like, I mean, a base hit, everybody's chanting USA, USA. Wow. And so like just super patriotic. So I wouldn't like say there was anything like any one like moment. But it was just more of those every little moments of any action. Like it was all chanting USA and people high-fiving. And yeah, it was just like, so I would, for people who are like baseball fans, you wanted as a team go to the playoffs, you want to go see the Hall of Fame, visit different stadiums and things like that. Like WBC should be on your list because it's a baseball experience that you can't get any other way. Like I can't sit next to a Rockies fan and a Dodgers fan and we're all rooting for the same thing. Like you can't get that anywhere else, right? So yeah.
What made you, Melissa, book the tickets in the first place? Well, I mean, it had to be to some degree curiosity. You didn't have the experience to say like, oh my God, I know how awesome this is. Was it just like, well, this is not once a lifetime, but once every few years, so let's do it? Or what made you even click the ticket versus maybe just try to see like one more Sox game or something?
Right. Yeah. And I think I had seen something about it being here, when we were here, and I was like, oh, well, let me just look. And I went on StubHub and the tickets were super cheap. That's the other thing for like a really cool experience. The tickets were super reasonable. And so I was like, what the heck? Like it's at night. We're not doing anything at night. Let's give it a try. And then like kind of building it started to build more and more and more before we even went. And so we got more excited, the closer it got from just, oh, let's see what's going to happen. And I think it's because of the caliber of players that are on that team this time around. That there's been so much more media buildup about it, and then the games leading up to it. And so so it was just kind of a shot in the dark. Let's do it. We're going to be here. Why not? It's cheap. And I'm so glad we did it. And if I ever got an opportunity again, I would go in a heartbeat.
Okay, so
talked about going to Miami.
Miami tomorrow. So be honest then. Before you had this experience and before you're desperate just to see a baseball game after the rain out and the other delay, were you more like me, like, okay, this seems like it might be interesting? I mean, I imagine you couldn't have known what it was going to be until you were there, right? So once you were there, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're here, right? Because you couldn't have really known before you actually walked into the gate that it was going to be what it was going to be.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think it was just casual fan, like, oh, it's just another cool baseball opportunity to like, I rank it up there with some of my top baseball experiences that I've had. So
And Sage, I mean, unfortunately, haven't got a World Series game yet, et cetera. I mean, it's coming. It's coming. But for you, it really is like how does it rank? Is it like maybe your favorite game yet, or pretty close to it? Because this is as close to maybe World Series as you've gotten.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's pretty close. I would say it's my second favorite game besides the playoff game in 21. That one you just can't beat until something else. But that was just crazy, just the atmosphere around that. But like going into it, I mean, I didn't really think of anything of it. I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like the over the soccer is like World Cup. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's kind of gonna be like that. And then you just go in and you're like, this is sports is way cooler. Like when I was watching World Cup, I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm not really interested in that. But when you're interested in, like, I'm interested in baseball, it's definitely way more interesting. And it's just something about rooting for your country too. That just makes it like so much more better, I feel.
Now, Sage, your first playoff game then was their playoff win against Houston. Then that was your first. Okay, Melissa, your first playoff game.
1993.
Okay.
First home game of 1993.
And that would have been a loss, right? Because they won on the road, but they didn't. Okay, so they lost.
Yes.
My first 83, they got killed by Baltimore. That game was so bad. We were in the armpit of the Comiskey Park. We got in the park. That was so awesome. We had tickets to game 5. And they got just clubbed. They got beat up, manhandled by Baltimore. It was crushing. I think I cried when Tito Landrum hit hit the home run, but I was watching on TV. So we were due to go to game 5. So, okay, loss. Oh, Sage, you're way ahead of us.
Okay. I mean, he got the Leori Garcia home run.
Always has a special place in your heart, Sage. Oh, of course. Yeah. So that's a good way to start. So I predict World Series wins for your future. Now you may be an old man, but I do see it happening for you. No doubt about it. You got off to the right start in a way that your mom and me did not, unfortunately.
Well,
but
the guy next to us today when we were at the park, when Rakan came over and was talking to us, he's like, oh yeah, I'm going all the way, do the World Series. And Rick's like, from God's lips to from your ears to God's lips, or whatever the phrase is. So yeah. So the guy next to me and Rickon says, yep.
Hey, Rick, he made the comeback. When you had left me and said, he sort of blew you off. Boy, he was, his Q factor was heading down, but at least he came back, gave you the autograph, self-deprecation. Not too bad. He rallied. He made a comeback. Not as clean as Ken did, but I mean, hey, at least he rallied for you. That's good.
And, all right, and he wanted to send you some love too, Nancy. I told Nancy, he's like, he's so sweet, and she's like, and you must be really good at your job to have him for your boss. I'm like, well, thank you. I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I think Nancy rounds everybody up about 300%, but God bless you, Nancy. I thank you. I'm every bit as good as you think I am. What a sweetheart. All right, well, that is awesome. And listen, hobnobbing with White Sox executives and White Sox legends like Nancy Faust. It's a Bollenbach with us here on South Side. Oh, it's not South Side, is it? No, we don't say South Side anymore. If I actually did any work on this podcast, I'd edit that out. But you know what? There was no Sox in there, so we don't know what South Side of where. Anyhow, listen, it's the Chicago Baseball Podcast, and soon enough it'll be something else, but we don't know when. So right now we're just in limbo. I don't even actually know if I can post this immediately. We're going to see what sort of limbo we're in. So maybe it'll be the regular season. We'll look back. This will be a look back 2 weeks earlier to the middle of spring training, back before this guy got hurt, or Pedro decided to resign his job, or whatever, or the Team USA won the World Baseball Classic. We'll see. We'll see if this is a look back or not. But thanks for listening, and thanks to both of you for taking time out, working so hard on the ground, and getting it done for us at spring training. And hey, maybe we'll do it again next year. That'd be sweet.
Sounds good.
Thanks everybody for listening and watching, whatever you're doing, whatever this is called, whatever number it is, whoever I am, we know who they are. It's Sage-Bollenbach and Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back probably sooner than you're ready for us.